Hello everybody, today I am going to talk about the Cassandra complex by Brian Stableford, but before I do that I felt it necessary to have a little prelude that concerns this book, The Third Millenium, A History of the World, AD 2000 to 3000 by Brian Stableford and David Langford. So there are probably, I suspect, a lot of people like me who when we feel like we're in a special little club of people who got our hands on this book and fell in love with it. This is a little treasure. I discovered it in a college library, and it is just a wonderful speculation on futurism. It's primarily a lot of manipulated photos. There are some artwork in it, some diagrams. It does, like here's an example of a lady at home in a spaceship or an air car taking off for work or something of that nature. There are micro worlds and space colonies. This is a hard science fiction books. So when you get out into space and you need gravity, you need a large structure to rotate to get it. There's no faster than light travel, though they do start making better and better engines, propulsion, and tiptoe out into the galaxy, but there's no galactic community. This is a hard science fiction book. One of its primary things it likes to talk about is biotechnology. Here we have the Fountains of Youth chapter, and this character here who comes up with something called nucleic acid renewal. And she winds up herself being living to the age of 177. And there's all kinds of politics and social issues that come up concerning getting this out to everybody. Interesting enough, nucleic acid renewal or therapy is a real phenomenon. Or at least it was. I don't know how widespread it really became, but this fellow by the name of Dr. Benjamin Frank did research in the 70s and wound up publishing a book on getting enough nucleic acid introduced into your body. In this case, I think it was around 1,500 milligrams is an ideal amount. He primarily did it through diet, though you can, of course, supplement through it. And the mice and rats that he experimented on did indeed live longer. I think there was some estimation that in people, maybe 10 to 15% as much added to your lifespan if you really dedicated yourself to it. I think that you can get supplements, but they're not called nucleic acid, it's ribonucleic acid. So if you wanted to go for it, there's your way right there. Hit Amazon for it. So here we have the Cassandra complex. And this is the first of a series called the Immortality series, not Immortality series, although I don't think I've ever pronounced immortality with an I as I, but they call it Immortality simply because immortality with an I makes people think of invulnerability, like you're indestructible. So immortality just means you can rejuvenate the body and still possibly die from whatever accident. You're still a mortal being. So enter the Cassandra complex. The title for this comes from a Greek mythology story where Apollo cursed a woman who had the power of prophecy, but she declined his romantic advances, and so he cursed her. And the curse was that no one would believe her prophecies. And the way this is used metaphorically today, for example, would be for something like environmentalism. Here's a bunch of scientists saying we need to do something or else bad things are going to happen to this planet or to us, the people on it, and everybody's like, I'm not really buying into it. And it's like a sense of hopelessness when you have all the information. And that's what titles this book. The primary character, her name is Lisa Freeman, and she is a forensic investigator. And in becoming a forensic investigator, she had to take a lot of biotech type classes and training. And her primary colleague was this fellow by the name of Morgan Miller. There is a typo on the back of this book that says his name was Jordan Miller. Nope, it's Morgan Miller throughout the book. Thought that was funny. And he gets kidnapped. He gets taken away. The book starts with her in her apartment, and someone has broken in, points a gun at her. And this sets off events that concern results of an experiment done by Morgan Miller. There is this lab with a large mouse city. It's called Mouseland. I think there was something like it in reality, but I didn't dig too deeply into that information. But in this they use this idea. And Morgan Miller may have found a way to make people live longer. But he did it in experiments in mice, and without anybody knowing it, he introduced some of his experimental mice into this mouse city with a whole bunch of untreated mice to see how it would all work out. Well, he started picking around. He found a problem with his research. Even though he can make mice live longer, he found a problem with it, and he tried to hand it off and sell it off to one of two companies. And word of this gets out, and certain parties start getting very interested, because this could turn out to be a horrifying weapon rather than something that benefits humanity, because of the flaw that he could not get past. So he is taken away. One of these groups kidnaps him, and they want to get hold of his information and put it out to the world so it can't be hidden away. And Lisa here, she becomes part of this investigation. There's police and whatnot involved. There are flashbacks throughout the book of their relationships with her and Miller and her other colleagues, and who's on whose side, who's been hiding what secrets, who knew what, and who wouldn't tell someone, all in a kind of a mystery thriller. This is really about setting up the future. It's really about biotech advances hiding behind an investigation into someone's kidnapping. There's a lot of, some of it straight up info dumping, some of it's a lot of dialogue right in the middle of an investigation that doesn't have as much to do with the investigation. It's almost like some two different subjects kind of crammed together to get a series started, is what it felt like, and that's the way it's structured. Despite there are some mixed reviews of the book, and I did read some of them, and despite some of the mixed reviews, I actually really liked it. It didn't blow me away, but I, along with being very interested in the material and the subject matter and this whole thing and giving me motivation, so I actually kind of got into it a bit, and I was actually pretty pleased with it. The only reason I don't. So this has been with me for a long time. I read this first in 1989. The only reason that I even knew that there was a whole series for this was that John at Sci-Fi Scavenger just saw me hold this up in a video and offhand mentioned that there was a whole series of it. So I'm like, well, I'm all up in that, and I went and got started. And so there is the first book in this series. Pretty good, John. If you're looking for a good review, I think it's worth your time. And then I'll do a video for each book. Speaking of which, now there is the reading order is different from the publication order. If I'm not mistaken, this was not the first book published. So I think maybe he went back and did like a prequel. And so the next book here is Inherit the Earth. And it looks like that's a heck of a cover now. It looks like we got a futuristic looking city on the cover of that one. This one, this is a very future-y looking lab thing. Like I said, it's a techno-thriller, but that looks a bit further along in the future than it actually is. This is the year 2041, so it's not that far off. This one, if I'm not mistaken, is at least 100 years on, and so here's the blurb for you. In the 22nd century, biomedical nanotechnology has given everyone in the world long life and robust health. It is the new utopia, and all live in the expectation that true immortality will soon be realized. And I said I versus E. That one says I. We got a fella named Damon Hart, son of the scientist responsible for much of the wonders of the New World, would rather forget his famous father and get on with his own life. But a shadowy terrorist group forces Damon to confront his heritage, launching a cat-and-mouse game that pits Damon against the terrorists, Interpol, and the powerful corporations that control the biotechnology of the future. A game Damon is still ill-equipped to survive. So that is the next one. Total of 6. There is a 7th one of short stories, but I'm not sure I'm going to get to that one just yet. I'll give you a little preview here. First book. Second book. There's the third one, Dark Ararat. I don't know what's on that cover. Oh, it's people looking through some kind of forest of bio stuff. Architects of Immortality with the E. Another big, looks like future city there in the background. The Fountains of Youth. Looks like a bit of a forest background there, if you can see that one. And finally, lastly, the Omega Expedition. This has forwarded with a nice summary of all the books, which I avoided. I didn't want too many spoilers. That's it. That's the new series I am reading, Off and Running, and happy with it so far. The Cassandra Complex by Brian Stableford. That's it. Thank you very much. Hopefully see you in another week. Bye-bye now.